Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew McVie. I'm Director of Shareholder Relations for Enmax. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I just wanted to take this opportunity to first acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. At Nmax, we practice safety in all we do. In the unlikely event of an emergency, all attendees will be asked to exit the building through the same doors you entered, located at the back of our meeting room. I'd also like to thank those joining us virtually this morning. A recording of today's annual shareholder meeting will be available on nmax.com shortly following the meeting. I'd like now to introduce Greg Milchin, the chair of Enmax's board of directors.
Thank you, Andrew, and delighted to welcome everybody here to our annual shareholder meeting. It's actually kind of fun to do this in person. We've had a couple of years, as with everybody in COVID, restricted venues where everything's been virtual. So it's nice to see faces and to gather in person again. And it's my pleasure to welcome everybody here. Today, we had the opportunity to talking about the results of 2021. That's the purpose of our meeting. Our meeting will have two parts to it. The first is a formal part of our session where we will have a number of three issues in particular. One will be the present, and then followed by a presentation by Charles with respect to the results of our operations. We're scheduled to end by 10:30. We'll keep to that deadline. Council has meeting after meeting all day with respect to shareholder meetings, and we're privileged and thank them for taking this time and opportunity to be with us here today. After the formal parts of the presentation and remarks by our President CEO Charles Ruigrok, we'll have time for questions. We'll open that up first to council members and then also to members of public. After that, after the meeting concludes, there's a separate availability for media that will make ourselves available for any questions that they may have and allow for time for them. But first off, I'll welcome the members of council. We have with us a number that may yet get with here, but I'll go through the list of actually those that may yet get to us. Some will be coming on time. We welcome Mayor Jody Gondek with us. Councillor Sharp may yet be getting here. Councillor Winus, Councillor Mian, Councillor Dhaliwal, Councillor Putmans, Councillor Wong, Councillor Walcott, Councillor Kara, Councillor Chabot, Councillor Penner. And there's some will be joining us actually, if not here, will be joining us virtually, Councillors DeMong, Shu, Spencer, and McLean. But I'd like to thank them really for their attendance today and really for the time that we've had over the past year in working with this new council. I'd like to also welcome members of the board today joining with us. Charles Ruigrok, who we'll hear from soon, Laura Formusa, Daryl Friedhandler, Barbara Monroe, Dr. Chica Onwekwe, Kathy Sendel, Bruce Williamson, and joining us virtually, we'll have Eric Markel, Elise Reese, and William Taylor. On our management team with us today, mentioned already, our Charles Ruigrok. We're going to keep mentioning his name often. He's getting used to raising his hand often, and welcome him here. Preet Dinza is our Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Where is Preet? Oh, there he is. Jana Mosley, President, Enmax Power. Greg Retzer, Senior Vice President, Enmax Energy. Erica Young, Chief Legal Officer, Executive Vice President, Corporate Development. Brandy Yarsh, Chief Human Resources Officer, Executive Vice President, Safety and Community Engagement. And joining us virtually is John Flynn, the President of Versant Power in Maine. With respect to that, I'll now call the formal meeting of our annual shareholder meeting to order.
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have a technical problem. Members of council don't have a link to the Teams meeting. Can I get someone to please quickly send out an email? I'm very sorry about this, Chair. We thought we had everything under control. It's almost there.
I think we can adapt to this, so we'll give them a moment to, we'll pause take a breath. So someone will
Everyone
be able to let us
refresh
know
your
when.
waters. Yeah, I
when-
will let you know right away.
Okay.
Name, sharp, minus.
Spencer, is there?
There was no.
So Spencer's got it, McLean's got it, Sharp and Winus have it. We're just waiting. And Chair, while we're doing housekeeping, what I will do is keep an eye on the chat so you know who has questions, so you don't have to worry about that. If you don't
Perfect.
mind me being your buddy on that.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. So we'll still wait a moment or two to give them a chance to get the link.
And we just need whoever's in control of the world to turn the chat on, please, in Teams so that they can put their request to speak in. Okay, so just an update for whoever's in charge of IT. Everyone's got the link except me because I'm not on the counselor's email and no one can access the mic or the chat. So if we could fix that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Keeps everyone entertained.
We're going to have a lot of people monitoring and helping the chair, and that's all good. So I welcome all that. Okay, they've all joined. Okay, we good to go then?
Only issue we have, Chair, is people do not have access to a mic for when they have questions. But I imagine we can fix
Maybe
it.
they could set it through the chat feature and we'll read their question.
That
Yes,
might
no?
not be the best. Okay, people are writing in that their mic is getting enabled, so we're almost there. I think when you do roll call, you'll need to have the mic.
We want to do roll call again? See if they've got the mic.
If you're fine with documenting who's in the meeting through Teams, then we don't
Sure.
need to do the roll call. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Understand you have record of everybody that's joined by Teams at this stage. Council's all in attendance. Really, and thank really the participation of council and whether here in person and or virtually. So if there are issues throughout the meeting, connecting mics and the like, we'll please get that information through chat and we'll see if we can't still enable the mic so that questions can be asked in this meeting. So I'll call this meeting formally to order. There before you, members of council, you have an agenda in your materials and it'll be shown. It's shown on the screen in front of us. Following my remarks and those for Mayor Gondek, we'll have three formal matters of business to be presented today. The first is the receipt of Nmax's 2021 audited financial statements and financial report. Second is the appointment of our auditor in 2022. And lastly, the election of the board of directors. After we complete the formal business, as I've mentioned, we'll have an update from our president and CEO on the business and operations. We're actually, we've been really proud of the success in the operations of Nmax over these last years. And last year was also an exceptional year for Nmax. Though difficult in many respects, we're pleased to be able to present the results of our operations. We recognize also one of the things that's been new for us this year and everybody is the new council, and it's been a pleasure actually being able to work with Mayor Gondek and the new council. We've had a number of meetings with them, both in orientation, both in questions behind the scenes, and in answering their questions. It's also been really quite a bit of work in working with the city administration, and thank they and our team for a lot of the work that goes on behind all of this to understand the information and the needs of each of the members of council on behalf of the citizens of Calgary. We do commit really to sharing and being open and transparent with all of our information. Everything's publicly disclosed on our websites with respect to it, just as if we were a publicly traded company. And that's the standard to which we want to have visibility for all of Calgarians so that they can see and understand the operations, objectives, and directions of the company. We're committed to seeing that we meet the needs of our shareholder and citizens. How do you see that you have reliable, affordable, and safe and responding to both the sustainability now and in the future of the electricity needs as they're changing rapidly in our society? As our board of directors, we're confident the strategic direction we work continuously on. What is that strategy? Also seeing that that's aligned with the objectives of City Council, such that the purposes of this organization can meet those objectives. At the same time, as I want to reemphasize, you want to provide that stable, affordable, reliable, safe electricity to everybody. One of the things I'd like to highlight is the Nmax has grown the city's initial investment of $280 million since its inception to a shareholder equity, and this is your shareholder equity of approximately $2.7 billion, and that's without any further need of any cash injection into the company. In addition to that, Enmax supplies an annual dividend to the city of Calgary, and that's been approximately $1.2 billion in dividends through that period of time. The results of operation have been really exceptional, both in this company and compared to peers, and really sets a solid foundation for the operations of today and tomorrow. However, I'd like to take this opportunity to see first an announcement that we made last week, a very exciting announcement for us. It is the key most priority that the board has, is to ensure that we find and select the right CEO to lead this company into the future. And with that, I'm pleased to welcome Mark Poeska, he's not with us now, to the role of Enmax President Chief Executive Officer. And this was following a very extensive search and competitive recruitment process. We're fortunate, really someone of his caliber, that we were able to attract to come to Calgary. He's presently the CEO president of Hydro One, a very substantial organization in Ontario. He was formerly the executive vice president of operations of BC Hydro. His 30 years tenure experience, his expertise, knowledge of the industry, and really the capacity to actually, envision what could be for the electricity in the industry in the future will bode well for Enmax now and going forward. He's a very people-focused individual leader, and we look for leadership as one of the key attributes, obviously, of a CEO of a company, and we're pleased and we look forward to him. He'll be joining the organization September 26th is the start date. But in that respect, look forward to someone who's had a very high emphasis on safety, on reliability, on results, and certainly innovation and community participation. I want to also thank Charles Rugrock, who's been done a great job, just a fabulous job in stepping in as our interim president and CEO. He's great expertise, background, a tremendous leader. It's been great working with our executive leadership team and all of Enmax, and also with council. And so we're thankful and fortunate to have some of his capability. I would now like to turn some time over to Mayor Gondek to say a few words. Mayor Gondek.
Thank you very much, Chair, and my remarks will be brief. I think it's just been a wonderful collaborative environment with a new council getting to know the corporation. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of the shareholder. There's a giant picture of me right in front of me. It's distracting me. Sorry. I think the increased collaboration between Enmax and council and the city of Calgary as the shareholder has been positive. And I think we all realize that we have a common goal, and that is to serve the public, to serve Calgarians. And it's that dedication to ongoing improvement and ongoing communication to make sure we identify any issues early and we celebrate any wins together that has been very positive. So I'm excited about the fact that we are looking after the economic, environmental, and social well-being of the people that we serve together. And on behalf of my council colleagues, I look forward to continuing to build a strong relationship. So thank you very much. And I know it was a bit of a time of flux while you were seeking a new CEO. Thank you, Charles, for stepping in. And thank you to the board for all of the leadership you've demonstrated. All of you bring varying skill sets that have made the corporation stronger. And to every member of the Enmax team, you are all leaders in the way that you have advanced the interests of Calgarians. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Gondek. And with those comments, we'll conclude our meeting. We have actually the formal aspect of this that we need to attend to. Very important part of actually every meeting. One is the first item of the three is to provide the shareholder of Enmax Corporation with the annual audited financial statements, financial report for 2021, as approved by the Enmax Board of Directors on March 17th, 2022. This is a satisfaction of the corporate law requirements for the financial statements to be placed before the shareholder at the annual meeting. Copy the annual audited financial statements report of your information package, and they're provided in advance of today's meeting, Schedule A. They were also presented to the shareholder at an in-camera shareholder meeting on March 17th. And so with that, Mayor Gondek,
I can confirm the receipt of Enmax's audited financial statements and financial report for 2021.
Great, thank you. The second order of the business is the appointment of the external auditor. The Enmax Audit Committee and Board reviewed this item and are recommending the appointment and the reappointment of Deloitte LLP as auditors for Enmax Corporation. The board is also asking for authorization to fix the remuneration of Deloitte LLP for audit work associated with the 2022 fiscal year. May I please have a motion to move the resolution before you?
I'm going to request a preliminary vote on the following resolution be held, and members of council, you can see it on your screen and you can see it up here as well. Be it resolved that the shareholder of Enmax Corporation approve the appointment of Deloitte LLP as auditors for Enmax Corporation for the 2022 fiscal year and authorize the board of directors to fix the remuneration of Deloitte LLP for audit work associated with the 2022 fiscal year. As the representative of the shareholder, I will move this. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Penner, thank you very much for that. I will ask for the vote now, and what I'll do is say, is there anyone opposed? I don't hear anyone opposed, Chair, and based on the results, I will cast the shareholder vote in favor of that resolution.
Thank you, Mayor Gondek, and thank you, Council. Deloitte has served us well as auditors for a number of years, and we look forward to working with them again on the 2022 fiscal year. Now we move to the third item on the agenda, and that's the election of the directors. You know, our board is comprised of really some exceptional, experienced leaders in this industry and in a variety. We're pleased with the skill sets, the diversity that we have on our board, and really the expertise and commitment and dedication. It's quite a diverse range of industry, business, community leadership, and the like. And we've just been very fortunate to attract the talent. We spend a lot of time in thinking through the right skill sets, tenure, succession of the board, and the like. We've had a very disciplined program over the last years in looking for who are the directors, what skill sets, what needs are there of this company going forward, and that will continue to be our process. And we're delighted for the exceptional leaders that have chosen to serve as directors of our board in the past. In that, we also in May initiated a formal search process for 2 new Calgary-based directors in preparation for skills that we require on the board and upcoming. That's somewhat an announcement of transition that we've been working on for some time. Actually, we continue to work on succession of the board. over this next year. Myself, Kathy Sendel, and Charles Rugrock will be retiring from the board over that transition period as we bring on a new CEO and look forward to also bringing on these two new directors. We had 3 new directors join us last year, and we're very pleased with the support of council in that process. And so with that, we've engaged a professional services search firm. We always do. We look forward to any names. We'll be sending out a more detailed profile description of the candidates, the skills that we think that would be necessary in the balance of our board. And we'll send that out to council in the very near future as to with regards to those skill sets that we were looking for, and would encourage them to submit names into the search firm as they think of good people that would be qualified to fulfill those positions. The directors put forward for election to hold office are as follows: Laura Formusa, Daryl Fridhandler, Eric Markel, Greg Melchin, Barbara Monroe, Dr. Chica Onwekwe, Elise Reese, Charles Rugrock, Kathy Sendel, William Taylor, and Bruce Williamson. Subject to the approval of proposed resolution, the board will be comprised of 11 members and will continue to govern with a view to serving our shareholders and citizens until the next AGM or such time earlier before that. So with that, Mayor Gondek, I'll leave that preliminary vote to you, Council.
Thank you. And before I do that, I just want to thank you, Chair, as well as Ms. Sendal, Mr. Rugrock, for all of your service. We appreciate everything that you have brought forward to this corporation, and we appreciate the fact that you're going to stay on and help Mr. Poeska get acclimatized to our world. So thank you very much for that. With that, I request that a preliminary vote on the following resolution be held. Be it resolved that the shareholder of Enmax Corporation elects the following directors to hold office until the next annual meeting of the corporation or until a director resigns, whichever is earlier. Everyone, you can see the directors listed on your screen in Teams as well as on the screen here, so I don't need to repeat that. On behalf of the shareholder, I will move this. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Putmans, thank you very much for that. Let me ask again during the vote, is there anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, Chair, that is carried. And based on the results of the preliminary resolution, I cast the shareholder vote in favor of the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. And it has been really a privilege and pleasure working with Mayor Gondek and Council, and we look forward to that ongoing working relationship as we work through making sure that the business of the Enmax Corporation is aligned with the values and directions that the city has. So thank you. We'll now completed our formal business, and may I ask for a motion to terminate the business meeting itself?
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the shareholder, I will move that we terminate the formal annual shareholder meeting. That is seconded by Councillor Chabot. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing and hearing none, we have terminated the meeting.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll now go on to having an update of our 2021 and operations from our interim CEO and President, Charles Rugrock.
Thank you, Greg, for that introduction. And thanks, Mayor Gondek, members of council, and to the members of the public for joining us here today. It's my pleasure to speak this morning about our organization and some of our successes since our last annual meeting. Before I share our business update, I'd first like to personally thank and recognize the significant contributions made by the Enmax team over this past year. The people who work for this organization are some of the most talented and dedicated I have ever worked with. They are caring and always want what is best for our neighbors and our customers. Their resilience is commendable, and watching this team come together and thrive under the challenges posed by the global pandemic has been a real privilege. I've long believed Enmax plays a critical role in the communities it serves. We must continue to provide our customers with reliable energy, and we must do so safely. Safety is a core value that underpins our company culture. A solid safety record is critical to attracting and retaining talent and maintaining Enmax's positive reputation. I am proud of our team's strong safety performance over 2021. We had a solid performance in Alberta, and in fact set an all-time best for Versant Power in Maine. Our number one goal is ensuring that everyone goes home at the end of the day the same way they arrived at work. Our people are the driving force behind our success in both safety performance and our operations. Today, I'm delighted to share some more about what those successes look like. Let me start by providing an overview of our business and subsidiaries. Headquartered in Calgary with operations across Alberta and the state of Maine, Enmax is a leading provider of electricity services, products, and solutions. Between our three business units, we operate across the electricity value chain. Enmax Power operates a regulated electric utility company that serves the citizens of Calgary. Versant Power operates a regulated electric utility company that serves the people of northern and eastern Maine. And Enmax Energy is a competitive power generation and retail company that serves the province of Alberta. All three business units contributed to earnings in 2021. Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, or EBITDA, for Enmax Power was $243 million in 2021. Versant Power was $131 million, and Enmax Energy was $236 million. These results ultimately led to a 7% year-over-year increase in the dividend paid to the City of Calgary for a total of $62 million. This is reflective of our commitment to steady growth in the value we deliver to our shareholder. Overall, as Greg had already noted, Enmax has distributed $1.2 billion in dividends to the City of Calgary since 1998 and grown the city's initial $280 million investment to a shareholder equity of approximately $2.7 billion. Prudent cost and capital management has positioned Enmax with a strong fiscal foundation. And while we take pride in delivering strong business results, Enmax is also a great place to work. This year, we were named one of Alberta's top 75 employers and one of Canada's greenest employers. Our growth in earnings and our capacity to deliver strong and steady annual dividend to our shareholders is only possible because of our customers. We recognize this and are dedicated to putting our customers at the forefront of everything we do. They trust us to safely and reliably provide an essential service we count on each and every day. We take that responsibility seriously today and into the future. Our Alberta customer care team delivered high levels of service in 2021, responding to over 665,000 customer calls, emails, and web chats, and achieved a 67% customer satisfaction rating. We supported our customers through the pandemic with a customer relief program that included payment deferrals and flexible repayment plans. In 2021, through publicly available forecasts, we learned market energy prices were trending upwards. We proactively reached out to affected customers to make them aware of the available options to manage their energy costs. We know electricity is essential, and we understand these are challenging economic times for many customers. Everything from food to gas to borrowing money is more expensive. Enmax has a dedicated team actively working year-round with customers to help prevent disruptions in their electricity service. This ongoing effort recently helped the majority of residential customers who were on load limiters at the end of the provincial winter moratorium get their electricity fully flowing again. On average, less than 0.2% of small business and residential customers face potential service disruption each month. That said, we believe one struggling customer is one too many. That's why we're focused on helping customers challenged by energy affordability during a time of market volatility and increased cost of living by providing support for our community partners who are doing the same. We put great care into supporting the communities where we do business because we, the people of Enmax, are also proud members of these same communities. It's a privilege to work alongside other businesses and to give back to the outstanding organizations that assist our communities most vulnerable. In 2021, we contributed $3.25 million to Alberta and Maine community organizations. To support customers in need, we spent 30% of our community investment budget on energy affordability initiatives. In recognition of the increased cost of living, Enmax is further enhancing support this year to address energy affordability, including donating an additional $200,000 to the United Way in area of Calgary and area and designated specifically for community partners, including the Distress Center Calgary, to help with those struggling with energy costs. We're committed to continuing to give back to the communities where we live and work, and to continue our efforts to address energy affordability through collaboration with our community partners and our shareholder. Affordability goes hand in hand with reliability. We're continually investing in the communities we serve by maintaining and upgrading the electricity infrastructure our customers rely on. In 2021, we invested $435 million in new property, plant, and equipment, and continue to deliver industry-leading reliability, generation availability, and outstanding safety performance. And in Calgary specifically, we spent $253 million last year on maintenance and upgrades. As a result, Calgary's electricity grid continually ranks in the top quartile for reliability amongst Canadian utilities and the most reliable in Alberta. The electricity industry is going through an unprecedented transformation. We're innovating to meet our customers' changing needs while maintaining a reliable and resilient grid and preparing for the critical role electrification will play in our sustainable future. We support Canada's ambition to become net zero and are looking forward to more details on the federal plan so we can be part of the solution. Our claims are substantiated by our actions. We've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 65% from 2015 to 2021. Considerable progress towards our interim goal reduction target of 70% by 2030. In Versant Power, we encourage customers to switch from using fossil fuels for home heating to using electric heat pumps. Since Maine's grid sources about 79% of its electricity from renewable sources, switching to heat pumps results in real emissions reductions. Earlier this year, Enmax Power became the first utility in Canada to pilot 2 medium-duty electric vehicles. This pilot program could save an estimated 4,300 liters of diesel per vehicle per year. And last year, Enmax Energy introduced Canada's first hybrid electric gas turbine at the Crossfield Energy Centre. This development cuts greenhouse gas emissions by 45,000 tons annually, the equivalent of taking 10,000 cars off the road. We're also proud to be partnered with the City of Calgary to launch the Nmax Community Solar Fund. The first solar installations are now underway at community halls around the city, helping neighborhoods decrease their energy costs and moving towards building a more sustainable city. This is a simple snapshot of some of the ongoing innovative work across our organization. We recognize our role in global decarbonization and are progressing towards a cleaner energy future. It's an exciting time to be part of Nmax. And finally, as interim president and CEO, I've been tremendously impressed by how deeply the Nmax and Versant teams care about their responsibility to our customers, our communities, and our role in a sustainable future. It fills me with confidence that Mark will seamlessly transition into his role as the incoming president and CEO and be supported by a passionate and exceptionally skilled team. I'd also like to thank Mayor Gondek and Council for your collaboration and support over the last few months. I look forward to continuing to work with you as Mark joins the organization and assumes his new leadership role. I look forward to deepening connections with you all. Thanks to Greg and the board members for your continued support. And of course, thank you to our customers who place your trust in Nmax. It's been a pleasure to lead this great organization for the last 8 months, and I'm excited to be part of what this team achieves in the months ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Charles. With that, we'll be able to open up this meeting. Any questions? Begin with council. Any questions that they may have? Councilor Crowe.
I'll start. First off, thank you, Charles, for your leadership. Ultimate utility player, keeping this great organization time to transition. Thank you for. I was just thanking Charles, just for the people at home.
Thank you to the corporation for starting to get serious on the climate file. We all have work to do in the years ahead, and how we generate our power is going to be, it's going to be the point at which we succeed or fail. And so we're all in this together, and we appreciate your leadership in that regard. I have a question that's slightly related to the climate file, and I brought it up with many of you before, but for the benefits of the new board members, I'm going to throw it out there again. Last night, council was in session until 10:30 at night. We did not resolve our business. We're going back on Thursday afternoon, and we'll be going late on that. And the question is how we fund and where we fund growth to balance maintaining the world-class affordability of Calgary that contributes to our livability, and maintaining the growth of our green shoots economic recovery while also responding to climate change. And the big challenge we have is after decades of setting up systems and industries and regulations and markets, we're very good at spreading out, but we're still learning how to grow up. And it's difficult. And we will frequently spend, hours talking about increasing an inner city lot from 1 unit to 4 units, and then casually pass 1,000 units on the edge of the city. We're building those units more sustainably than we ever have before, but it's still a challenge. One of the challenges for inner city redevelopment is in our inner city areas, we have historic wires that are sitting not very well papered and weird encumbrages and all of that. And on a lot by lot basis, I experience this many times a year. We have challenges where a building's pro forma that's trying to go from 1 to 4 units, very modestly, will have its entire economic pro forma crushed by the fact that there is $70,000, $100,000 worth of jimmying with the power lines, moving the power lines. We have lots that are effectively cauterized from development because they're encumbered by wires. And, to use a development term, the juice is not worth the squeeze. But all of these things matter to create more livable, more dense, more inclusive neighborhoods and to reach our climate goals. So I've been challenging for the last couple of years sort of the establishment of an inner city fund. One of the things that we need to do at a larger scale is if somebody wants to put a mixed use building onto a corner, they'll be responsible for maybe replacing a block worth of pipe, and that kills the project. And so we're developing almost an insurance policy so that everyone pays in and no one gets stuck with that first big hit. And I think it's really essential that we do the same thing, especially at the small scale for the inner city. And I've been talking about this for at least a year now. We've got a couple of issues that are coming to a head, but I want to put that on the radar and ask, how are you guys thinking about this request and this thinking and where we can go from here?
One of the great things as chair is I get to delegate this to Charles.
Is this working? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Karan. And we've chatted about this before, and I'd say we're guilty of not moving it ahead perhaps as quickly as we should. Your thoughts about establishing some sort of fund that will help cover some of these costs and mitigate them, certainly a good idea. I think we have to have some dialogue with the regulator and what they'll allow within their sort of scope of control. Sometimes they push back pretty hard on us around having other customers bear the costs of putting in facilities for a few. But I think collectively working together, there's an opportunity, I think, to come up with something. We just got to get together and get on with it.
Great. Thank you. Please do. Other questions? Councillor Walcott.
Thank you. So with the increasing focus on ESG governance, ESG and the different styles of audits we're moving toward, the social aspect often always comes back down to affordability and how affordable is clean energy for people in need. For the most part, it's not. Frankly, like when we think about just the types of affordability we see in the city, it's generally older homes that are often in decay, or to some degree, they're just places with like older systems that are just not as energy efficient. As Enmax seeks to move forward with clean energy as one of the primary focuses for the organization, I was just really hoping we could comment on the ever-present challenge to balancing energy affordability, energy poverty, alongside our climate goals. And it's a challenging balance to play. And to Corral's point, we were thinking about it yesterday, right? Like the financial stability of the city, growth was going toe to toe with our climate commitments as well too. And we're still trying to figure out that balance internally. So I'm curious just to get some comments in public on that balance here.
Thank you, Councillor Walcott. I think the solution sits in a whole host of different things that we need to work. I don't think there's one magic bullet. I think that in the near term, we're diverting more of our community giving to organizations that can help us with those kinds, help the vulnerable and those that really struggle with affordability more than ever. We work with organizations like, I think they're called Alberta Eco Trust, that provide funding for things like energy efficiency improvements to deal with what you allude to there, but people that have older appliances and are less efficient and use more power than they should have, LED lighting, those sorts of things. And we're directing more funding at social organizations, social services organizations that will help those that really struggle in the near term with the high energy costs. I think longer term, I think our challenge is to work collectively on how we can direct the investment of the future in a way that minimizes the absolute cost to the consumer longer term. So my sort of mental picture of the future is one where we see a lot more distributed generation in a lot of homes with batteries related to them, so that we're not investing a whole bunch on the wires that are in the city already, particularly in the areas where you've got a lot of underground. The older communities are easier to upgrade because the lines are all overhead. And the newer communities, we're putting 200 amp services in. But it's the bunch in the middle, the stuff that's been built in the last 25 years, where people wanted the wires underground, they're all underground. And the cost to replace those or upgrade those is significant relative to what it is in the other cases. And I think that's an area where we really need to get creative about how we use distributed generation and the evolving battery technology to help us minimize the cost of replacing the infrastructure. I also think there's a future here where Nmax is going to play a very different role at the customer interface. And it's going to shift from moving electrons to actually controlling stability on the grid. As homeowners produce their own power, and they're more or less energy efficient, our sales of electricity go down. But the need for stability on the grid, whether it's voltage stability, frequency stability, doesn't go away. And the customer can't do that. And so our relationship is going to be very different. And it could go as far as, and some will cringe when I say this, but it could go as far as Nmax controlling when your car charges, so that not everybody in the street is charging their car at the same time. And with that window, though, we can minimize how much investment goes into a community. So there's some very creative approaches, I think, that you're going to see evolve over time that help minimize the investment and ultimately the cost to the consumer and improve affordability longer term. But we're really going to have to get out of our box. It's going to be very, very different than today. And quite frankly, if we had all the answers, I'd be a happy guy. But we've got an upcoming strategy session in October with our board. And one area of focus at that session is, what does our future like, and what does our revenue model look like long term when you have to make these kinds of changes? And how do you get from A to B with the regulator, with the policymakers, support to get to where we need to be in the future? I think that's the first step, is getting them in the right space to be supportive of where we'd like to go.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. I know the complexities of the business, and honestly, the complexities of a future that we just don't know yet. You're planning for something that we're unsure where we're going, and so I appreciate the comments in public, and especially just to be able to help people understand the complexity of the vision that the board is working with to try and understand what our future holds here. So thank you.
Happy to do it.
Other questions? Please, Councillor Penner.
Thanks. You spoke a little bit to the call volume that comes into the call center and the customer satisfaction rate. Can you speak to how those volumes have changed over the years, how those trend, but also the satisfaction rate? Because when I hear 67%, I'm like, is that trending up? Is that trending down? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, it's actually 87%.
Okay, I thought I heard you say 67.
87.
Apologies.
87, and 87 is likely we've had years where it was slightly better. 88, 89. We've had years. I think our target's 88, right? Yeah. Obviously, call volume, but part of the reason it's down a little bit in the near term is call volume's way up. You know, when energy prices shoot up, we get a lot of additional calls. We've had a big shift in the past year of people moving from the variable regulated rate option to the fixed price Nmax option. We had January and February set records for the number of new customers on the Nmax program. And as you can imagine, every time people call and have to sign up, it takes time, and your other people struggle to get through. There's a regular calling that goes along with that. So higher in the near term, expect it to go down longer term. We're working on our platform as well to give people more self-service options longer term, so that we can take the load off the call center and let them focus on the calls that really matter. The vulnerable customer that calls in and needs help, needs to move to some sort of a deferred payment program, that kind of stuff. And as you can well imagine, those calls take some time.
Thanks. I won't hold you to task over 87% then. The last time we met, we talked about those vulnerable people phoning in. And when I hear about the call volumes and the call wait time, and having heard stories on our end about people being on hold for upwards of 4 hours, recognizing for a lot of those individuals, that's paid time that they don't have. How are we specifically addressing those individuals rather than the standard call-in number, who may be on a load limiter, who may need some support with payments? How are we redirecting those individuals specifically so you're not your average customer, and supporting them in a more timely and appropriate fashion?
I think I know the answer, but I'm going to turn it over to the expert over there, Greg Retzer.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. We do have a dedicated team specifically for the most vulnerable customers. We have 25 agents that are specifically trained and empowered to work with that. When we do have folks that are on long call volume, we do have a callback feature. It's not on all 24/7, 365. That's one of the things that we're working on. As Charles highlighted, some of what we're trying to do is move to more folks to our Enmax app or more digital platforms, much more efficiency that we can address some of the more unique situations. Volumes have come down, as Charles mentioned. That we did set all-time records, and we are seeing higher performance and higher customer satisfaction over the recent months.
So I love the idea of an app, but we still have a digital divide. So are we making sure that we're still offering choice for customers and how they contact Nmax?
Yeah, I think you nailed the exact key word there, is that everyone's situation is unique and everyone needs choice. What works for one does not work for others. That is exactly part of our strategy and our customer service platform of how we're investing and offering optionality and choices moving forward.
So I'm going to ask this question. We've heard from all of our other shareholders in council chambers, and it's been live streamed. Why not this one? We've heard every other AGM from our wholly owned subs we've held in council chambers, and it's been live streamed. Why not this one?
One of the challenges we had, and I guess what I'm not really certain is the construct of holding it within council chambers as to an Nmax meeting itself, chaired by Nmax, not so much by council, and that's part of it. But we also have some very rigorous kinds of requirements with respect to optics, presentation, that it's run in a fashion that's not just politically directed. For example, our commitments to the regulators in Maine when we acquired another utility in Maine, to our bondholders, actually puts us on a fairly rigorous kind of commercial basis for operating as you would have for a normal shareholder meeting. And for that matter, most normal shareholder meetings many times are held. We've in the past held them when we had District Energy just across the street. Was it excellent? We had our own facility there, and that's been sold. But that was a great facility to showcase some of our own assets itself and hold it. And so it's been in that light that we've tried to ensure that the presentation to the public as well has been, the optics of it has been such that it's seen to be run as a commercial operation, not necessarily in a council chamber that appeared much more politically directed.
So I'm going to push back and say one of the challenges we hear from our constituents is demystifying Nmax, and that it is not public and doesn't feel public. So while we may have some boundaries of it not being politically, driven, why is this not public? Why is this not live streamed?
Well,
Is there anything that we cannot be talking about to the public?
there's absolutely nothing, and I'm not certain that this is not live streamed. I guess I've got Andrew on that point.
Our AGM's not open to the public to ask questions.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to leave it that we need to improve this process for next year because this is not public from what I'm looking around. This is not public. This is not how we demystify Nmax for our customers and the relationship that we hold with you. And I think it raises a lot of questions. And I think we need to be mindful of the message that we are sending to the public.
All excellent points, and we'll be happy to see that, for that matter, the public is invited. Not trying to be holding back anything from the public. We sure all of our information is posted and available to the public, and the more we can do to invite the public to participate, all the better. So happy to work with you on that. So.
Chair, you have two questions, one from Councillor Putmans and the other from Councillor Meehan.
Okay. Councillor Putmans? Or are we going to Councillor Wong? Councillor? Okay.
Thank
We'll
you.
go to Councillor Wong, Putmans, and then Meehan.
Thank you, sir. We talked a lot about green energy, and we talked a lot about climate change and this and that. With your new CEO coming on board with extensive history both in BC Hydro and now in Hydro One in Ontario, what is your strategy associated with leveraging his experiences, relationships as such, to explore hydro generation for Enmax?
Well, one of the things we're really excited about Mark coming in as CEO is just that, the depth of kind of background and knowledge that he has about the industry and a range of forms of generation alike in different markets, constructs. So that is part of the analysis of what does that look like for a company such as Enmax in the future. So he will play a very important part of it. He'll be at the center and foremost of the strategy that will be developed. Our next strategy meeting, we deferred specifically to October so that he could be here with that, start to give that input immediately.
Second question, you made reference to Charles made reference to electric vehicle charging and such. Talking to some of the home builders about, putting EV charging stations in homes, especially in the established communities, in the 40, 60 years of history, would Enmax consider providing power charging stations for cars, not just for people living here, but also visitors and tourists that come here as well?
I'm gonna ask Janet to comment a little bit because I think her group has done a fair bit of thinking about what we would provide in the way of a charging network. I personally see them in some of the newer communities. Fee for charging types of installations. But Janet can tell you more about our thinking around charging more broadly around the city.
Absolutely happy to. So we have a couple different pilots that we have been doing over the last few years as it relates to EV charging infrastructure, where we have been partnering with people in the community, the city of Calgary, and the business community to test out where people want to charge. Are people charging at home? Would they prefer to charge at work? Are they charging downtown when they come to meetings? And we have been doing a partnership as it relates to the funding model related to that. As a regulated company today, investing in the chargers themselves is not something that is normal to go into rate base for a utility. So our model has been, how do we help people build the infrastructure to connect? And how do we learn more about the data and then figure out what might be the long-term business case for a regulated entity such as Enmax Power as it relates to the infrastructure themselves. We've been really pleased with the partnership that we've had with the city and with the business community and the residents of Calgary. They're quite interested in this. And I think that over the long run, we'll find what the best model is for both consumers and for our shareholder.
Councillor Pootmans.
Thank you, Chair. Following on a few other themes, hydrogen is back in the news this morning with the Prime Minister announcing potential federal support for LNG exports off the East Coast. But it raises the notion again about the role that hydrogen might play in our power generation in the future. And I'm wondering if Enmax has a policy on that topic.
Yeah, thanks you, Councillor Carra. I guess Councillor Pootmans, sorry. My personal view is hydrogen is behind carbon capture and storage in terms of its availability on the timeline that I think we're going to require it for Shepherd, for example. Shepherd can always be retrofitted with hydrogen down the road if that becomes a viable technology. Some customers or some suppliers are putting their eggs in the hydrogen basket. Some are, but they tend to be people like in the oil and gas industry that are looking at a 2050 timeline. We're potentially looking at a 2035 timeline. And for that, I don't think that hydrogen is going to be ready for prime time. Just a personal view, but I don't think it's going to be ready.
Thank you.
Councillor Mion.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. My question is related to when we think about the journey to 2050 and to net zero, there are many constraints that are before us. And I think there's a couple constraints that are really well understood by the public. One would be affordability. The other would be technology constraints that are there before us. But the one that I think is not well understood, and I'm wondering if you can speak to, is challenges in the regulatory environment. And so could you speak to challenges that we are going to face and changes we're going to need to see from the regulator in order to get us to where we need to go?
I'll maybe make a few comments and then I'll ask Jana to comment as well because her team works regularly with the regulator. I think you point to something that is a legitimate concern. I don't think that our regulators, certainly in Alberta and in other areas, are as far along in their thinking about what's going to be required, and we're going to need to help them see the picture of the future and what's going to need to change. You know, there are things like just advanced metering, which I think is sort of a building block and fundamental. Now, I think in the last round of our regulatory approvals, we got support to finally move forward more quickly with advanced metering infrastructure. But we're going to have to flush out more about exactly what we need and take that not just to the regulator, but to the policymakers as well. So you point to, I think, an area that we have, again, at our strategy session, we've got to focus on what are the things we can do today to set the stage for tomorrow. Not that it all has to happen tomorrow or today, but we need to understand where they need to. We have to help them see the picture of what electrification and decarbonization looks like at the customer interface and what that's going to mean for changes in the regulatory environment and policy. You want to add anything there, Jana?
I think you covered it well. I think what I would add is that, the regulator is taking very seriously their role as it relates to affordability. And given this wave that we're seeing as we advance electrification and try to meet net zero goals as a society, it is a daunting task. And so I think our role is to collaborate with them to really focus on helping them understand what the long-term plans look like from primarily a distribution and transmission perspective. And what the scenarios are, and really partner with them. And, our team is invested in doing that with the regulator. But I think, as Charles said, policy is key, and really having a well thought out roadmap of how we're going to achieve both federal and provincial goals in the best interest of customers is key. The approach we've been taking as Enmax is to go to the source, to go to the people that we serve. What do our customers want? in what time frame. And that is why you see us spending quite a bit of time investing in pilots with the community, so that customers can drive the change that they want, and we can be a vessel for that with the regulator. The other thing that I think we really need to help our regulator appreciate is, just as Charles mentioned, the need to maximize the existing investment in the grid. And any place where we can start looking at different business models around non-wire solutions, where we, as our role as the utility who understands the system best, and can continue to ensure safe and reliable service for people, while thinking differently about how we use that system, and receiving the appropriate financial reward for doing that is very important. So working with the regulator on demand side management and these other types of solutions is key, and we need our policymakers to help there as well.
Mayor Gondek?
Chair, if you don't mind, I'll just add something to that. Council, it's going to be important for us to understand that we need to play an advocacy role together with Enmax. As the shareholder, we're going to have to push the regulator. There's a couple of things that people are not aware of. Enmax themselves cannot be promoting fixed rate products. So they can't be promoting the fact that people could sign up for EasyMax. Those are things that we don't always know as the shareholder. As those things become apparent, we can help push out the messaging to our citizens and work with the regulator to fix that. The other thing is smart meter technology. We need to make sure that we're able to get that into homes so people understand their energy usage. And frankly, just updating the regulator's policies to provide the stability that you talked about. The grid now it needs to be different than it has been. So we will have a role to play as a shareholder in advocacy together with Enmax. With that, colleagues, I don't see anyone else in the queue. I'd like to respect, we're almost, okay. Councillor Chabot, if you could keep it quick. The issue is we need to go to the public. So we'll go to you and then Chair back over to you to ask the public any questions.
I'll be very, very quick. From an energy generation perspective, are we considering nuclear SMRs?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Chabot. Again, I don't think they'll be there on the timeline that we would need it to get to net zero on an earlier timeline than 2050. I think they may well be a solution for us post end of life for some of our plants, like Calgary Energy Center, which will have a shorter life than Shepherd, for example. So they may well have a role for us, but it's going to be much further out than 2035.
With that, and our time is coming already at 10:30. What I would invite the public, I will take maybe one question from the public, but what I want to do is, if there's any things you'd like to follow up, we'll be around. Be happy to talk with anybody for any individual questions you may have. So any questions?
There is one question coming from online. We have his mic on.
Hey, thank you for taking my question. My name is Robert Tremblay from the Calgary Climate Hub, and I was a bit late coming into the meeting. There was just some trouble getting a link, but so this may have been addressed in the presentation, but I just wanted to ask about emerging federal policy and Enmax's generation mix. So right now, 86% of Enmax's generation assets are fossil fuel powered, and we have emerging electricity regulation from the federal government, prominently the Clean Electricity Standard, which is looking to require 100% clean electricity by 2035. And this will probably come with corresponding changes to the carbon pricing scheme for large emitters. So, given Enmax's current exposure to fossil fuel generation, how is Enmax managing its, that risk that those assets might pose down the line with certain policies? And I guess I'll just tag on to that as well. Does Enmax have any plans to expand into utility scale solar or more utility scale wind? Thank you.
Thanks for the questions, Robert. I'll answer the second question first. Community scale or grid scale solar is something we're looking at. It's challenged from a profitability standpoint, so I'm not sure where we'll end up going with that, but we are looking at it. In terms of the role of our natural gas-fired assets, we have the most efficient fleet in Alberta, and there are no other sources of generation in Alberta to provide grid stability when you've got 100% renewables. So I see our fleet as having a long life in that role, and it's going to take carbon capture on the back end of those facilities to get our emissions down to meet a net zero objective longer term. We just were recently approved by Emissions Reduction Alberta with a grant that is going to fund a feed study to be conducted for Shepherd, for CCS at Shepherd. So that's the path we're heading down. I think that's the only realistic path that Alberta can head down, quite frankly, if we're going to try to meet the clean energy standard. As you point out, it's an emerging standard. There's still a lot of questions of the devil's in the detail. We need a contract for differences to guarantee carbon offset pricing. But that's stuff we can all work through, and the work is underway.
Great.
Appreciate the answer and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to bring this meeting to a close. I want to thank council for their participation. Really, it was great to have the variety of questions and support and feedback from council. With that, we'll terminate our meeting. And if there's any questions and follow-up, we'll be here to answer them if you have them. Thank you. And we'll be also availability for the media. Thank you.